Hey everyone, thank you for coming. This is organized by Strata, and we've been trying to make sure that people have a platform where they can discuss a lot of stuff, intellectual stuff, just in personal collaborative stuff. And thank you for joining in. We are a team of around 12 to 15 people so far, and one of the people is Ketki. And yeah, everyone will be joining soon. So, okay, so today's webinar was intended to be about internships, and we have two people who will be joining us. The first one is going to be Alessandra. We people just call Al, and she is, as you might have got in the poster so far, she has worked at, she's interning at BCG, and yeah, she's also marketing head at 180 DC Consulting Club. So we're so happy that Al is joining us today. So
as Arav described, that we are kind of trying to build a community where we can work on professional goals together, because we thought that there's a gap there, and we would love to hear from you guys what would be helpful going ahead. And right now we thought that internships was a really burning issue that was causing everyone a lot of anxiety. So that's why we decided to go ahead with this one. Hey, Alessandra.
Hey, Alessandra.
Hi. Hi, nice to see you. Yeah, so we're, okay, well, first of all, nice to meet you, everybody. I was very happy to be able to help somehow incoming students. That's amazing, because I was there last year, and when I came to ESP, I didn't have many resources to be able to, I contacted people, but it was not a strong thing. So that's a very good idea. I'm very happy if I can be helpful. So yes, I'm head of marketing and events at 180DC ESCP. We are right now conducting interviews for consultants and executives. So I was in an interview before, and that was it. Yeah, it's a bit of a rush because we have quite a few applicants, and it's a bit crazy during summer.
That's amazing. That sounds like 180DC has been really interesting for a lot of people, and those forms really help, by the way. Yeah. Speaking of interns, yeah, you were telling something?
No, go for it. No, go.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of internships, like you said, you're interning at Inverto, through BCG, and in the whole European Union, how is the internship situation like?
Okay, so,
as in, as in, you have any tips or something that people should know about internships?
Okay. Well, first of all, there's all the legal requirements, but that's a different topic. If we can start with what could be helpful. Okay, first of all, one thing that is sure, the market is very competitive, so there's a lot of demand, and the offer is not that huge. So one thing that is for sure that I will suggest everybody to do is to look for internships as soon as they can. Maybe not in September, maybe not even October, but start from November if you can, to look for internships, because that will be very helpful. Because, for example, there are some companies that take a long time for interviews. For example, I know Bain or PwC, they take 3 to 4 months. So that's a huge amount of time. And if you are trying to intern in a company that is in France, French is normally a prerequisite. It is not the case for every single company. Normally, bigger companies do not request French as a language, but many do. For example, when I was interviewing for BCG Inverto, I had to do an interview in French. As well, if you interview, for example, for Bain, they will ask for interviews in French. But I have many friends that are interning here in Paris that do not know French. So this is a prerequisite for some companies, but not for all of them. So that you shouldn't be worried about. Something more, just takes a lot of time. It just takes really a lot of time to find an internship. It's not easy. They also normally request some previous experience. So for all of that, clubs inside ESCP can help. Every internship that you've done can help. So I will suggest to leverage all of those things. For example, also certificates, if you have them, if you might do them, and things like that. Maybe very, very useful to find a good first internship. Regarding time frames, normally they last between 4 and 6 months. You can find internship for 3 months, normally in consulting firms such as, BCG offers 3 months internships. I know PwC, Deloitte, and some others, but because I'm in consulting, sorry, yeah, that part. But like normally, for example, if you're looking into finance, or even normally marketing or business development, they normally take for 6 months, mostly in France. For example, if you're looking in Italy, Spain, or even Germany, they might last a bit less, even UK. But for France and normally, for example, Luxembourg, they last for 6 months. Then for requirements, normally, depends. If you're European, you don't need visas. You can just work in the European Union with no issues. But for example, also Europeans need a visa to work in the UK. So it's an issue. While for everybody else, normally the visa that you get through ESCP is enough. So once you have the Schengen visa, you can work in France normally, and you can try and see if you can work also in other countries. It's normally not that difficult. Once you have the Schengen, you can go work in Europe. Kind of, it's easier at least to get to work in whole Europe. So if you have more specific questions.
Yeah, actually, like when we talk about visa and the internships and everything, and as you mentioned, that certificates will be really helpful. Do you think that there are any specific things or activities or like any specific courses that people should do? Like, how does a person decide which role suits best for them? Because there will be a lot of confusion among students because they have to do a compulsory internship anyway. So how do you decide that just because you have to do an internship, how do you choose the best internship for yourself? How did you do that?
I think it depends, first of all, on the future that you see yourself working in. So in what you are interested in. I have to say I have a lot of friends that did an internship and then they don't like that. So everything can change, but that's why there's at least 2 internships, and that's why there's a lot of time for that in ESCP, and that's the right time to try whatever you want. I believe that you should go for what you think could suit you. So what you think are your strengths and weaknesses. So first of all, you should get to know yourself better, understand what you can do, what you want to do, what you like, and what you're good at, and what you're not, for example, good at, to see in which domains, in which markets, and in which industries you can leverage that. So once you understood that, you try and see, I think, what positions you would like to work in, for the requirements, for the workload, for also the different projects that they have. For example, if you would like to change a lot, maybe consulting is good, but you have to take into consideration that you work longer hours. If you like finance, you can see like if it's private equity, M&A, or if it's pure corporate finance, which one you prefer. I think it's mostly based on what you actually like. At least the first internship normally is based on what you like and what you see yourself doing in some years. For some others, is based on company. So which company could have a biggest role on my CV. But I strongly believe, and that's my opinion, but I strongly believe that it's more the job than the company. Because, for example, if you intern in a good company, but it's something that you don't like, at the end, it won't be that needed as if you work, for example, in a smaller company, but for something that you actually like and you actually want to do in the future.
Right.
Plus, the fact that you have a specialization the first year can help a lot.
So I have 2 follow-up questions on that. One is like, as you said, that people can work on different companies based on like their like market cap and scale, like depending on how big a company is. And I guess I'm presuming that the bigger the company, generally the higher the pay that is going to be. Is that the case? Like, do people who find an internship? Sorry?
You're talking about pay, right?
Yeah, like how people can expect to financially support themselves.
Okay, so first of all, well, there's some, interns are not well paid, and that we all know, I think. For what concerns Europe, there are some places in which an intern is very well paid, but that depends on the country, first of all. So for example, in Luxembourg, you can think of sustaining yourself and putting aside a lot of money. I have to say that interns take a lot of money in Luxembourg, and they're always looking for people because they don't have enough workforce. So that's a very good one. For example, in France, you can normally sustain yourself. In Italy, no. Spain, kind of. In Germany, you can for sure. The thing, for example, I talk for the French market because it was the one that interested me the most. Normally, internships are well enough paid, so you can normally have a room or an apartment in Paris and live on a monthly basis without exceeding too much. But then it depends again on the company and on your experience level. I don't think it's a problem for me to share data. Like normally an average internship is in Paris, not talking about my company, I'm talking about like, I'm just talking in general, it's paid 1.2 to 1.4K. That is normally enough to be able to live okay in Paris.
Yeah.
It doesn't depend that much on the size of the company. Because a lot of companies, for example, in the luxury sector, they have a fixed rate. So, for example, Kering and L'Oreal, they pay the same, their interns, and it's not a big gap with other companies. And there are smaller companies that have maybe less employees and more money to spend, so they will pay you more. So it really depends from company to company. There's no the highest salary.
Awesome. And as we know that you are interning at BCG, how is the consulting scenario like because a lot of people from different backgrounds have interest in consulting, and that's also reflected in the data we've collected. But what's the general day as an intern or in general at BCG like?
Okay, I have to precise, I'm interning in a part of BCG that is Inverto, that is specialized in supply chain and procurement. So we deal with BCG projects, but we are a smaller team. So I actually have a lot of responsibility on myself, and even though I'm an intern. So normally, the day starts between 8 and 9. It depends on the day. And it can finish as an intern at Inverto between 7 and 8:39, I would say. That is something very good for consulting. That is not bad. But once again, it depends. Normally, as an intern, you deal more with internal parts of the project rather than directly talking to clients. But for example, as my team is a bit small, given that part of BCG opened in Paris last year, so we're a team of 25 people, and we deal with very huge projects from BCG. We have a lot of work to do, so even as an intern, I take on a lot of responsibility. I take on for example, supply searches. I get in contact with our client and with other, for example, possible suppliers or stuff like that. So normally you have a couple of meetings a day. You don't stop working from 9 to 7 or 8:30. You're full of stuff. But normally the thing that I like is that you have you have some time to talk to your to the other consultants, so that you actually learn a lot. And the life of a consultant, I think, is just full of data analysis, PowerPoint presentations, Excel. Excel will be your best friend if you're into consulting. Actually, it's half PowerPoint, half Excel, and a lot of meeting with the clients to understand what they actually are looking for and how to better solve their problems. So I think it's just data client, other consultants, data client. But I like it so.
By the way, coming to talking to clients and everything, 180 DC also takes a lot of projects and everything. How big of a part did 180 DC play in your journey to get an internship?
I think it played kind of a big part, as 180 is well known all around the world actually, and as it helped me also gain first hands-on experience on what a consulting, I wouldn't say consulting company, but a consulting club at least works like. So it gave me a lot of soft skills, I will say, to try to get into consulting. And it plays a major role when when people can see that you are already into that world, that you already know how things work, how the deliverables are, more or less. And plus the fact that, for example, I'm the leadership team, so having that role helped me because you can see that, for example, it helps when you have to tell them that you actually know how to lead a team, that you know how to deal with people, that you can organize yourself. So that helps a lot. And as I said before, it's well known. And given that it's that we work for socially and environmentally committed companies, normally that is valued because we have very strong values, and we really try to work for companies that couldn't, like, for example, hire an actual consulting company. They come to us, we do the same work, same amount of hours, and same deliverables, but we do it for a cause. And normally that commitment is actually something that is very valued.
Oh, that sounds very good, actually. Yeah.
Let's say I like it a lot, and that really helped me. So yeah.
So like you have to be really passionate when it comes to like when we are joining 180 DC, and so people have to be very like passionate about consulting because that requires, because at the end of the day you're doing it for a cause mainly, so that requires a lot of willpower and like self-motivation. Is that true?
Yeah, I think it's more about motivation and values that you want to bring, like the impact that you want to have, more than the experience in consulting per se. Meaning that, yes, for us it's very important that you actually believe in what you do and everything, because first of all, I mean, we're a student association and we don't work for profit, so you will be volunteering. Yeah. And so you will be spending quite some time of your week on something that you're not doing for profit, that you're doing just because you believe in it. So yeah, I think it's the motivation is very important in that case. And does management consulting as a specialization, like how big of a role does any of the consulting specializations play in actually getting a consulting job? I wouldn't say that much of a big role. Of course, if you specialize in consulting, you get to understand better how to solve case studies for interviews, how to better help once you are an intern. But I don't think that plays a major role.
All right. So people can specialize in other, like people can choose other specializations and still go for consulting as a choice.
Yes. Yes, it's 100% possible.
Awesome. And like, since we're like very close, like since it's literally about 1.5 to 2 months where everyone just comes to Paris, I mean, comes to different campuses and join their own, like they start their own academic journey. What was your situation like when like you were just 1 month away from when you're joining?
It was a disaster, not a disaster, but like it was very messy because I had to find a house and everything. Okay, I started actually in Turin because I applied in the last round. So I started in Turin. But the thing that I think is most difficult is finding a house. For example, for me, I'm changing every semester. So finding a house for 4 months is something crazy. So 1 month before I was just trying to find a house, trying to put everything together to move. And I think that was kind of it. Like I was actually trying to understand how to make the most out of it, to get to know better what the courses will be, what the professors were, and also the other students. So a lot of groups have been created, for example, for people in Turin to meet before the start of the classes, and I think that's very important. That's very, that's a cute thing to do because you get to know your peers before, so that's very useful. Trying to understand also their background, how they can help you, how you can get more from all of those people because there's a lot of different backgrounds, there's a lot of different also nationalities, and that I think is the best thing in the ESCP. And so I was just trying to figure it all out, putting everything together, but most of my time I was spending on trying to find a house. That was it.
I think we all can relate to that thing right now because everyone's just a mess at like finding accommodation.
Sorry?
Arab, do you want to move on to the questions?
Yeah. I was just telling that we should probably like, everyone can relate to that right now because everyone's just trying to find accommodation and it's kind of a mess at some point of time.
It's impossible. If you're coming to Paris, it's impossible.
Well, that gives relief to some of us, yes. Also, like, should we take on the questions now? Like the questions that people have been
Yeah, we
asking?
have one in chat. If anyone else has any questions, particularly about consulting internships in France, then please put them in the chat and we'll answer them one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Alessandra, can you see the chat as well? So we have one question here long, and if you can just, so maybe I can read it out for everyone. You were able to see your, yeah, you can read it.
Okay, so you were able to see your colleagues securing jobs in extremely competitive places like MBB, but also those who did less better by securing a job only in the boutique consulting firm or below. What were the distinct things that those who secured a placement in MBB did in contrast to those who got only an average job? Okay, first of all, if I can just say one thing, I do not believe that a job in a consulting, like in a boutique consulting firm, is a never job. And I think a lot depends on what you want to do. So for example, I've seen a lot of friends of mine joining consulting boutiques because they're more specialized and because they want to specialize, or because the experience is completely different. It's like joining a startup and joining a firm. The experience, for example, in a boutique consulting firm is more hands-on. So you get to know the client, you get to go wherever you have a lot of more responsibilities. But what I think is different is, first of all, the experience you have before. So if some candidates had already some experience in consulting, for example, it's easier for them to get into a bigger firm. While if you don't have much experience, you normally, it's more difficult to be screened for big companies. Same thing for finance. Normally finance, you need at least, for example, 6 months of previous experience in finance to join a big one. So if you're talking about capitals, for example, if to join a mid cap, it's okay if you don't have a very long internship in finance before, but for bigger firms, it's more difficult. So I think that one maybe, plus maybe the care that you put in the application, or the amount of things that you do, for example, during your academic year or during your previous studies, and all of the requirements that the companies are looking for. So it really changes a lot between company and company, between different industries and stuff. What I think is, first of all, what you want to do. So if you want a good name or a certain type of experience, you go for bigger firms. If you want a very hands-on job experience, you go for smaller. I think it's that, and like the commitment that you show during the academic year, the experience you had doing work, and it's all together.
And like,
I hope I answered. I'm not sure.
It kind of does answer the question. It actually does answer the question.
We have other questions in the chat as well.
Yeah, so one of the questions was, because as you said that like shifting semesters to different countries can be it can be a task. How do you manage internships during that? Like shifting to different semesters already, as you said, that sometimes it can take like 3 to 4 months for big companies, let's say PwC or companies like that, to like actually schedule an interview. So, or like get to know like if you're getting an internship or not. But that's also about the same time when you will be trying to shift semesters to other different countries. So how do you fit that in this like whole equation?
Well, that is not easy. That's for sure. I believe that like the thing is, if you start looking for an internship way early in the semester, you might know where you will end up before having to face the question, okay, where do I go now? So I think that's the only thing that you can do, because otherwise it's just a mess, because you cannot know where you will be going. If you if you find an internship of 6 months, then you want to you take a gap semester, so you don't go where you were supposed to go, but it's a bit of a mess. So it's just, you cannot know. You cannot go with the flow, or at least you try to secure a position before, and but that's quite crazy. Or else you choose a country and you say, okay, I want to stay 1 year in this country, and in that way it's a bit easier.
Cool. I think we want to move on to our speaker, but could you just quickly address the two other questions? Did the ESCP brand name help you with internships in France? And basically, how did you prepare for your interviews for these consulting roles? And this is coming from a person who doesn't have a lot of prior experience, so that's what they wanted to know. Then we can move on to our next. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Regarding ESCP, yes. The ESCP name in France, most of all, has a very huge value. So that for sure helps a lot because there are firms that do only take people from the best business schools. So normally it's ESCP, HEC, and ESSEC. You normally have to have one of those names to get taken in some firms. So I have to say ESCP name helped me a lot. Also the ESCP portals are very useful when looking for internships. For example, there's Job Teaser that has a lot of good internships on it, and it's direct applications for most of the jobs. So that is very useful, and the ESCP name is very great for that. It's now becoming more famous also in Italy and in Germany. So it's good on those, also on those places, and in Luxembourg. Regarding how I prepared, I did a lot of mock interviews, case studies. So that's the only way, because the screening part of the CV is not the worst, the most difficult part. The most difficult part is then when you get an interview. Normally it's between 2 and 3 rounds, and you normally get at least 2 interviews with case studies, and those are not easy at all to pass. Meaning that if you have a lot of experience with case studies, you can deal with them, but otherwise it's a lot of pressure, and there are some companies that even put way more pressure on you than they should. So you have to know how to deal with a case study. You have to know how to divide it, how to just get into it and find the solution of the problem. So that's what I did. I did a lot of case studies, and there's also, I think, a group on WhatsApp for the preparation of case studies, and there's a lot of people who like to do that together so that you can see different versions, or you can do actually mock interviews with people from the same university. And I had no prior experience in consulting as well, only 180, and then a consulting startup that I was working for before. But I think that you have to show that you actually have other skills that can be valued, that can be leveraged, and that you really are committed to doing that.
Right. All of this was really amazing, and this was really useful information. I think it's answered a lot of questions that people had in mind. And yeah, thank you for joining today.
And if you need something else, just I'm there whenever you want.
Sure. This was really helpful. Yeah, I think 180 DC Consulting, a lot of people have been thinking about this. So thanks so much for taking out time. And I think you won't take much your time because you have a really packed day. I hope
yes,
you'll be able to take your time soon.
Yeah, no, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Vikram, I'd like to call you on.
That was a good way to start. How are you guys?
Great. So you might have seen him from the YouTube channel called TIMVIX, which has personally been very helpful for me because there's not a lot of channels about ESCP out there. You see HEC, you see EdHec, but there was very little information about ESCP. And he has already done one Marketing and Communications Internship. So if anyone has particularly been looking at those domains, listen in closely and then we can maybe take up some of the questions. Yeah, so Vikram, do you just want to introduce anything apart from what I just gave a brief description?
Nothing much. I just want to say that a big thank you to you and Arav, first of all, for organizing and putting this thing up. You guys are showing that you're so proactive, and there's actually a need for this. You know, there are many people asking these kind of questions, and as a student ambassador myself, it's really tiring to answer every question again and again, the same questions. So what you're doing is really good, and kudos to you guys for that. Apart from that, if you already seen me on YouTube, hello. If not, my name is Vikram. I'm from ESCP, and I've been studying in ESCP for 1 year now. I finished my first year, and then I was on a gap year where I did an internship in Faurecia for 1 year in Marketing and Communications. And now I've registered second year in the Madrid campus. So I'll be heading to Madrid for my next semester. And yeah, I'm happy to be here and happy to answer all your questions.
Great. Let's get started. So I think first we just all of us kind of wanted to understand what is just a basic general process for getting into internships, and how did particularly ESCP provide the support, or what all are the efforts you had to put in from your side?
Okay, so this was my first professional experience. I finished my bachelor's in 2020 and then I immediately joined ESCP. I did not have any prior work experience except for the mandatory internships that we did in BTech. So after I finished my first year, I did struggle a little bit to find my first internship. It was not easy. I had to send in a lot of applications. I still have an Excel file where I was recording how many applications I sent. And I remember sending around 70 to 80 applications before I got a first confirmation, confirmed internship. So it does take time. That's the reality. If you have prior work experience, it definitely helps you a lot. Your prior work experience definitely helps. But if not, then it does take time. And you just need to keep trying. Do not lose hope. That's the first thing to remember. How does ESCP help? Well, ESCP has this platform called Job Teaser. That's their official platform. So you can apply for internships through the Job Teaser platform. And when you do that, your profile gets higher preference compared to other profiles that are coming from other platforms. So you basically upload your CV on Job Teaser. And you also have the possibility where other companies are actually searching for candidates like you, and then they reach out to you before you reach out to them. So even that happens. So Job Teaser is quite helpful in that aspect. Apart from that, there was also this career guidance thing. I don't remember the exact name, but you can reach out to the career center and you can tell them that you want to have like a profile evaluation. And what Career Center basically does is they will ask you to make an appointment with some coordinator or some mentor, and then they will basically assess your CV. They will talk to you. They will ask you what is your area of interest. Basically, they'll help you identify what you really want. You know, some people, they are very clear with what they want and they are lucky. If you're clear with what you want, you're lucky. But if you're a bit confused, if you're not clear what exactly you're seeking out, in those situations, this really helps.
Right. And were you just looking at opportunities within France, or were you also applying outside?
I was applying outside as well. As I said, I had sent like 70, 80 applications. So there was a point when I was like, dude, anything is going to work for me right now, you know. So I was applying for outside as well. But at the same time, I had this filter where I was very particular that this and this are the two domains that I'm focusing on. You know, I was very clear that I don't want to get into finance. I was very clear I don't want to get into HR. So that aspect was very clear for me. Apart from that, I was very sure that, for example, marketing. I was very keen that I want to get into marketing. And another domain that I was interested in was consulting, because that was the first specialization that I did. So I was very clear that these are the two areas of interest that I have. And I don't really care much about which country I'm doing my internship in, as long as the opportunity is good and the job description is good and I get what I need to learn. Right.
And are there any sort of formalities one has to keep in mind going from country A to country B while they're in Europe, and maybe not a European Union citizen originally?
Yeah, there are certain things that you need to take care of, especially as a non-European citizen. There are work permit visas and certain visas which need to be like, you know, you have to follow the protocols and the rules. As far as I'm aware, if you're going from France to Germany, let's say, you can stay and work in Germany for 3 months with your French residence permit. But if you're going to do anything which is more than 3 months, then you have to apply for a German residence permit. Not many people are aware about this, but you have to do it. It's a process that's mandatory. So these kind of things you need to be very particular about. I'm not very familiar with what are the specific policies or specific visas that you need to apply for. But the student affairs of ESCP is very, very good in this. There's a there's a person called Elena in the student affairs. She is the one who takes care of the visa aspects, and she's very helpful. So if you have any queries regarding what kind of work permit you have to apply, or is there a mandatory visa, or anything related to visa and paperwork, it's better to text her, and she will update you with the latest rules and regulations which you will have to follow.
Right. And as an international student, is there something that we can do to set ourselves apart when you're applying, even coming to languages or certain sort of experience? What would you suggest in that area?
So one very interesting thing that I noticed in France and in Europe in general is they don't really care what you study. They really don't care. What they care is how can you add value to them? What are the skills that you have? That's the only thing they care about. So I'll just give you a quick example. So I did my first specialization in consulting, right? So I was searching for internships in consulting. And it was really hard for me to find because at that time I was not very proficient with French. And I did not have any contacts with people who were working in the consulting industry. So I was sending out applications and none of the applications were getting accepted. It wasn't moving forward. And then I realized that, okay, the next best thing that I have is marketing. Because of my venture in YouTube and Instagram, I have certain skill sets which can be translated into marketing world. So I thought, okay, you know what, I'm going to use this as my strength, and I'm going to restructure my CV in such a way that it highlights my marketing aspect more. And that's what I did. And then when I started sending application, there was a drastic change. I started getting much more responses. And when I had the interview, all the questions were related to the experience that I've had so far with regards to my YouTube channel, with regards to my ventures, which I've done personally. The fact that I'm from ESCP gave them the confidence that, okay, he has something, you know, he's not a liability, but he has some potential. He has that brand value. That's the only thing that ESCP gave in for me, especially when it's coming to the internship. But the fact that I was able to do something on my own, and I've been able to put out content and being able to express myself, those things added more value in terms of finding internship for me. So I would definitely say that what you're doing right now is also an amazing thing. You know, you can use this strata as a case study, as a thing that you can say. You can always say that these are the things that I did before joining ESCP, even before the session started. So that adds more value, in my opinion, and that helps a lot. So you can start developing on that. And another thing that you could do is language. While French is definitely not mandatory, it is helpful for sure. For example, the company where I was interning, the official business language was English. So all the work that we were doing was in English. But in order to be able to communicate with your colleagues, you need to speak French. You know, because they communicate in French. They are like cracking jokes in French. They're while having coffee, they're talking in French. And if at that time you're not able to communicate with them, then you feel left out. And that's when you need French. So again, it's not mandatory to know French in order to work in France, but it's definitely advisable to know French if you want to lead a happy life.
Great. And as new students in business school, how would you suggest we start creating our networks? And how helpful do you think it has been to get you internships or any other sort of opportunities as well?
Networking is quite essential, really essential. So there are two ways you can approach this. One is having, attending the fairs that happen in the campus. You have these alumni parties as well in the campus where monthly once or monthly twice they invite a lot of alumni. They come, they have like a gala night. You get to interact with them. So that's one way of networking, right? Another way of networking that helped me was through hobbies. Now, if you have a particular hobby and you go out to pursue that, you end up meeting a lot of other people from other domains. And that's really helpful. So in my case, photography and passion for cars and bikes, that's my hobby. So I used to go out every Sunday to this car meet where all the automotive enthusiasts, they used to bring their cars, and I used to take photos. I used to practice my photography there. I used to film videos for my YouTube. And I was very consistent. I used to keep going every single Sunday, rain, snow, sun. I used to keep going because I'm very passionate about that. It's my hobby. And once I started doing that, a lot of people noticed me, they approached me and they started talking to me. And that thing was amazing for me because I met so many people from there working in different industries, different companies. And I don't think I could have had that level of connection in an alumni night. It's my personal opinion, yeah. I don't think I could have had that level of connection because when you have a common hobby, you connect more. Yeah. You connect more because the person who's talking to me, he has a camera as well in his hand. I have a camera as well. And it's the camera that's initiating the conversation, and that conversation has more depth, has more meaning compared to just meeting someone randomly and saying, hey, you want to network? This is my name. So this is my opinion. Yeah.
Great. That's really helpful to know. And I think maybe let's move on to the questions because that's also another big agenda on your list. So I think we have Swarnika who's asked how to go about finding a marketing internship, where to apply, how is the process. I think you've kind of taken us through it, which is looking at those portals, kind of applying to different countries, customizing according to the role. Yeah.
Exactly. So in my case, I was active in job teaser as well, but it was not job teaser that gave me the first internship. It was directly through the company's portal. That's how I got my first internship. So just filter out the companies that seem interesting to you, and also consider the fact, check which company is actually hiring a lot of students from your university. So in my case, I noticed that Faurecia, that the company where I interned, was actually hiring a lot of interns from ESCP. So I noticed a trend, and based on that, I sent my application for 2-3 job roles at Faurecia itself. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up getting a call. We had 3 rounds of interview and I got selected. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. Don't depend completely on job teaser. Job teaser is a good way to do it as well, but keep your eyes and ears open. Look at other platforms as well.
Right. And Mahima asks if a personal brand is as important as well when it comes to applying to marketing internships.
It definitely adds a lot of value. Again, it's not mandatory. It's not that you need to have a personal brand in order to get a marketing internship. There are many colleagues of mine, many friends of mine who don't really have a personal brand per se, but they have the knowledge, they have the passion, they have the drive, they have that creative spirit, and that's what counts in the end. So when you have a face-to-face interview, the person with whom you'll be working, they see whether you have that drive. That's the main thing, So having a personal brand, it definitely adds more value. It's basically like a proof, when you say that you have a personal brand, when you say that you have a YouTube channel, you have a social media presence, it acts as a proof. It's like what I'm talking is what actually I'm doing. So I'm not just building castles in the air, That's what the personal brand helps in. But again, it doesn't really have to be with personal brand. You can work with anything. For example, a friend of mine actually created an Instagram page for a small startup business in his hometown. And this was during the COVID time. The startup it was a very small shop, pet shop, and the shop didn't really have any social media presence, And during COVID, it was getting affected. The business was getting affected. So my friend, what he did, he realized this, and just as an interesting project, he volunteered to do that for free, and he made a page. He took some photos of the animals, of the pets, and during this process, he also polished his skills. He also brushed up his skills, his photography skills, his editing skills, his ability to write captions to attract attention, and that page eventually reached I think 800 followers or something over a short period of time. Now, it's not a very big number. It's not 1 million. It's not 100K or something. But the fact that he actually went out and started something, that was convincing enough for the recruiters, and he ended up getting a good marketing internship. So ultimately, it's not personal brand that's adding value. It's the fact that you can do what you say.
Right. Great. I think we are unsure how this Google Meet ends. I think there's a 1 hour mark. maybe we could try shifting to another Google Meet. I don't know if everyone is up for that.
I think we can just keep continuing. But I don't think it ends abruptly, right? Doesn't end abruptly.
I mean, I hope there's a timer or something. At least that's how I'm in Zoom. Yeah. Does anyone in the call know if has anyone ever done 100 people Google Meet? 70 people. Okay, so I think
I guess Meets allow us to carry on. I don't think so. It ends like that.
Okay.
Because Meets is Google, Zoom is a separate business model, right?
Okay.
So they don't cap it that way. Yeah.
Thanks, Shantanu. Great. So then we can move on to the next question, which is that when did you really start applying for internships? If it's a 1-year master's, I don't know what that exactly means.
So I started applying for internships like 3 to 4 months prior to the last date of my M1. I mean, there's no point in applying very early as well, because some companies, they say they want you to start immediately. It is not possible if you are still pursuing your M1, right? So it depends on what kind of industry you're looking at. For example, as Ali said, consulting, right? For consulting, the procedure of recruitment is quite long. You have multiple rounds of interviews, case studies and all that. So maybe for that, you need to start applying much earlier. But for marketing, it took me, once I received, so I sent out my application and I received a response from them after 2 months of sending an application. So once I received the response, I had 3 rounds of interview with them, which took over 2 weeks of time. And after that, I asked for a 1-month gap and then I started my internship. So they were willing to wait for me for a month. Most of the companies are willing to wait for you for a month, not more than that. So you have to time your application and interviews accordingly.
Right. And I think Shantanu asks, any industrial experience works, or does it have to be relevant experience from the field that you're looking at?
No, any relevant, any industrial experience works in my opinion. What matters is how you translate it to the respective field. That's more important. For example, you are working in consulting, right? And then you decide to go to marketing. So what are the skills that you learn in consulting will add value in marketing? You need to be able to translate that. So I think it comes down to how you are selling yourself ultimately, because you learn something from any given situation, and how you're presenting it in front of your recruiters is what matters. So for me, my prior experience were all in engineering background. I didn't really have any marketing background, like work experience per se. And how I was able to convince them is that I told them that the engineering internships that I was doing, I was quite autonomous. I was given the responsibility and I was taking care of the task that I was assigned. There was no one continuously mentoring me or no one taking asking for continuous feedback. That was not there in my case. And that kind of helps, it's just a small example that I'm giving, but that kind of helped to convince the recruiter that, okay, this guy is autonomous. He can work on his own. He has that experience from his prior work experience or internship. So in this case, the experience, what particular work I did didn't really matter, but how I did and what are the other skills that I learned from that counted.
Right. Great. I think the last question that we have is more about the kind of pay that one can expect as interns, and does it do any offers get converted to full-time positions after the internship?
Does offers get converted to full-time? Yes, it does, depending on which company you're working in, depending on how you're performing, depending on whether your team manager likes you or not. So there are many factors involved in that. But yes, there's always a possibility of converting your internship into a full-time job. That it happens. Pay, in my opinion, for in France, it ranges from somewhere between 900 to 1400 euros. Depending on which company you're working in. Startups, they're generally less. Startups is around 800, 900. Big companies, they offer above 1000 for sure. So it depends which industry, which company, there are a lot of factors involved. Also, Paris is generally a higher paying place compared to other towns and cities in France. You do get opportunities in cities like Marseille, Nice, Lyon, but the pay will be less. The pay will be considerably less. Also, your living expenses will also be less. So those are some factors that you need to consider. So Paris, I think, with the internship salary that you'll be getting, if you're wise enough, I think you can still end up saving some money after having a decent lifestyle.
Right. Great. And in terms of structuring the internship, is it necessary that one takes it up after their entire like semester 1 and semester 2, or are there any other combinations that people can follow?
There's no fixed rule per se. As far as I'm aware, you are allowed to take a gap semester only after your M1 completely. You cannot take a gap semester between your first semester and second semester. That's not allowed.
Yeah.
So it starts after you finish your M1. So in my case, the way I did it was I did first 2 semesters, like the whole M1. Then I took a gap year, and then I did 1 year internship, and then I'm continuing with my studies. Some people, they take a gap semester instead of doing a gap year. They take a gap semester, they pursue an internship for 6 months or 4 months in that gap semester, and then they continue their studies, and then again they take a gap semester. So it depends on your choice. One thing you need to consider is the fact that it's always easier to apply for internships when you say that you're available for 6 months or more.
Right.
If you tell them that I'm available only for 2 months, 3 months, it's really hard to find internship for these people, like such a period of time. You do end up getting some summer internship programs, which happen for like 3 months. But again, I don't really think those summer internship programs add that much of value. There are many students participating in that, and it's just like an industrial process. I don't feel that you get to connect a lot with the employees or your manager in that. In my case, since I took a gap year, I was able to tell my manager that initially I'm looking for an internship for like 6 months, which itself is a good period. And if needed, I can extend my internship for a year. I'm available,
Yeah.
So they were happy with that. And I started my first internship, did it for 6 months. And after that, my manager was like pretty satisfied with my work. And she offered me to stay back for another 6 months. So they actually offered me an apprenticeship, but unfortunately ESCP was not very helpful in that. So I could not get an apprenticeship contract, but I did end up extending my internship for another 6 months in the same company, but under a different team and a different job role. So it is possible. You can do that as well. Another thing you need to keep in mind is the specializations. So not all the specializations are available in throughout the year. So for example, some specializations are available only for spring. Some specializations are available only for fall. Yeah. So if let's say you're very interested to do a particular specialization, yeah, which happens only in spring and it doesn't happen in fall. In that case, what you can do is you can choose to take a gap semester during fall, do an internship in the fall, and then you do a semester in the spring for the specialization that you like. Yeah. So this is another factor that you need to consider.
Great. And I think we have a few more questions in the chat. Can you do an internship while studying, as in maybe in the M2 year where subjects might be easier? Not talking of the apprenticeship.
Can you do an internship? Yes, there is a part-time internship opportunity, but it's very hard to find part-time internships in France because France is not very open with that idea. In Berlin and Germany, much easier. They have the student where certain job roles are designed in such a way that it's for students who are studying and working at the same time. But in France, you rarely find that kind of a setup. It is possible. There is part-time internships, but very hard to find. So
it's more like a rarity, maybe 1 or 2 cases who would be looking at it. Great. And Shruti wants to know why you couldn't actually take up the apprenticeship.
Apprenticeship. So for apprenticeship, there's this rule that first of all, you need to be fluent in French. They ask you to write a motivation letter in French. Then there's an interview in French with ESCP. And based on the interview and the motivation letter, the ESCP committee decides whether you deserve an apprenticeship or not. Once they decide that, they say that, okay, let's say Vikram is eligible for an apprenticeship. We'll give him that offer. We'll give him a contract. And then they give you a time period of, let's say, a month or two to find an apprenticeship. Yep. So first you need to get a confirmation from ESCP. Then you have to start searching for an apprenticeship. And then ESCP validates it. So that's how the apprenticeship rules work for ESCP, which is not the same case for other universities. It's very different. So what happened for me was everything was different. For me, it was the company who offered me apprenticeship on their own. I did not have a confirmation from ESCP yet. So that was the first problem. Second problem was that ESCP was very particular that I should speak fluent French, even when the company was okay with me not speaking French. So that was a little bit weird. The third was that for the apprenticeship track, ESCP actually takes a lot of time to process the whole apprenticeship thing. It's not a very quick process for ESCP. And the offer that my company gave me was, there was a time restriction. It was time sensitive. So I had to confirm it to them within a period of 2 weeks. And I was very, very sure that ESCP is not going to respond to me within 2 weeks for apprenticeship. So I thought, in a pursuit of apprenticeship, I don't want to lose an internship opportunity. So that's why I said I'm willing to do a second internship instead of an apprenticeship, and I gave up that.
That sounds like a pretty tedious process, I think.
Yeah. So I'm quite sad saying this. I feel sad to say this, but ESCP and apprenticeship is not really a good combination, especially for foreign students. If you're French or if you speak fluent French, it's a different scenario. But for foreign students, ESCP, apprenticeship, not a good combo. I would rather insist or suggest you guys to focus on getting a very good internship, which pays you well, which allows you to learn more, which allows you to connect more with the employees so that you can build a network and then focus on that. Because see, it's better to know in the beginning that it's hard. It's hard to it's like chasing a golden pot under a rainbow. You don't know if it exists or not, right? But the fact that it's hard, and I don't want to waste my time pursuing something that I know it's very hard to get. And there's a very high possibility that it might not work. So I would rather put my effort and focus on the things that is very possible that I can do it.
And Abhimanyu is asking, is there any reason you had to change teams after 6 months during your internship?
The concept behind this is that they want you to learn as much as possible during your internship. So what they feel is that if you stay with the same team, you kind of get saturated and you won't learn new things. So actually, initially, they didn't even allow people to stay in the same company for more than 6 months. So if you do a 6-month internship in, let's say, BCG, then you cannot do another 6-month internship in BCG. You have to do it in another company. So many people, many students complained about this, and because of this, they removed this rule. Now you're allowed to do another internship in the same company, but under a different job role and under a different team. Both have to be different. Your manager has to be different. It cannot be the same manager.
The job role has to be different as well, like completely your profile has to be different. Okay.
Yeah. So in my case, my first 6-month internship was marketing and communication, and my second internship was as a marketing analyst intern.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I'm yet to update. I'm yet to update my LinkedIn. I didn't put it on my LinkedIn yet.
And Ayush asks if the procedure is different, if you know about apprenticeship procedures for London or Berlin as well.
I'm not quite well versed with the apprenticeship procedure for London or Berlin. I think London, it should be I don't know, because none of my friends did an apprenticeship in London. So maybe it doesn't really exist there. I'm not very sure. But I think it's better to ask ESCP. I'm sorry.
And Shantanu asks, would you recommend switching companies, or is it better to just switch to a different department in the same company?
Oh, interesting. It's a very tough question. It depends on what kind of job you're doing. In my case, the reason why I stayed back in the company is because I loved the job that I was doing. I absolutely loved it. It was my dream internship. Every single day was fun. And I really wanted to stick with that company and that particular, the particular team that I was working with. Unfortunately, the team thing didn't work out, so I was switched to a different team. But I was lucky that the task that the other team was doing was kind of in accordance with the same team that I was working with initially, So indirectly, I was still connected with the team that I was with. And because of that, I was able to connect with a lot of employees in the company. And interestingly, after 1 year, when I said that, okay, my internship is coming to an end and I'm going to leave the company, many of them were surprised. They said, what the heck, you're an intern? Like, we thought you're a full-time guy. You've been here for like 1 year. You're an intern. So you get that connection with the employees when you stay long-term, which you will not get if you're jumping continuously from one company to another. And another thing that helped me was because I stayed with the company for a long time, I learned each and everything about the company, like what are the products that they offer, what are the different clients that they're targeting, everything, So the first 6 months, it was hard for me to understand because I was new. It was a challenge. It was a new atmosphere. It took time for me to get used to it. But the next 6 months, it was like a butter for me because I knew everything. I knew what this company is doing, who's the next target. I knew everything. So my workflow became much smoother. And as I was working, even the team felt that, okay, this guy's efficiency has improved. And it did improve because I had spent the first 6 months learning. So the next 6 months felt much quicker for me. It was much easier. So in my case, yes, I did enjoy working in the same company. But if you're someone who had a very bad experience in the first company, then there's no point in sticking around. Like, I know some friends who joined a consulting company. They worked for like 3 months and they hated it. And then they quit the company and they were like just waiting when the contract is going to end and when I get a chance to go to another company. So it comes down to whether you enjoy the company, whether you're enjoying the job. Sometimes what happens is, let's say, for instance, you take up a marketing internship, right? You do a 6-month marketing internship, and then you get this feeling that really marketing is not my... I was having this different expectation, but this is not exactly what I was looking for. In that case, you switch the company again, right? You switch the company and you can go and try to work in a different company, or you try to get an experience in a different industry. Like, for example, the industry that I worked in was automobile industry. So if I feel maybe this is not the industry that I want to work in. So in that case, I switch the industry. I go to some other industry, let's say pharmacy, and try to get an experience of how marketing is done there. So depends on several factors.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing we'll have to consider for people who are going to take a 1 year break in between. Great. So I think we've reached the end of our time for this webinar. And
no worries. I did see a couple of other questions. I do have time. If you want, I can answer them.
Great. If you have time, then we have no.
I think Vatsal asked some question.
What are the exact
skills
that one might require while looking for a marketing internship? For example, SEO, copywriting.
Okay. So marketing itself is a big domain. There are different types of marketing. You have digital marketing, you have like traditional marketing, you have social media marketing. So what kind of marketing are you focusing on? That matters. Considering B2B or basic tools, I would say, which you need for marketing is you need to be well versed with editing software like Photoshop, Lightroom. You need to have some basic idea about video editing softwares like Premiere Pro. You don't need to be like a master movie maker, but you need to have basic idea because you will be given a task to coordinate with a motion graphics designer. So when that happens, you will be coordinating with the person. The person will be doing all the animation, graphics, movie making, all that thing. And your job is to coordinate with them. So if you're well versed with the tool, it's much easier for you to communicate and, converse with your colleague. Apart from that, you need to be good with writing, writing articles, writing newsletters, those kind of stuff, writing in general. Also, if you're having a little bit of inclination towards photography, then it helps a lot because, for example, in marketing, the one where I was doing, a part of my job was to take pictures of the demonstrators that we had in the company and use that pictures to create posters. So it was me who was clicking the pictures. Generally, companies cease to do this task, but because I had the proficiency to do it and my team had a camera with them, they gave me this task and I was the one who was doing it. So this was an added value for the team. So having these kind of skills, it helps. It helps.
Great. Shantanu has a question which you may answer only if you're comfortable with.
What's the question?
Did you get a PPO?
PPO is conversion?
Yeah.
Full-time. Yes, I did. I did get a PPO, but unfortunately, thank you. But unfortunately, I couldn't take it. I had to decline it because I still have 1 year of studies left. If I was doing an end of study internship, I would have been able to continue the same role that I was pursuing full-time. But because I have to finish my studies and it's like 1 year of studies still left, it's not even like 3 months or something, it's like full 1 year and I have to write my master's thesis and all that. So for that reason, I had to decline it. But again, since I was with the company for 1 year, I hope it will be easier for me to get back in touch with them and to find some opportunities once I'm done with my studies. Yeah.
Sorry, I am interrupting here, but the question I have would be a follow-up for this only.
Yes.
While Alessandro was speaking, I had the same question. How should we schedule our internships in that case? I mean, should we go for a gap year, gap semester, or plan our internship so that, we are done with our studies altogether and then only we dive into the industry so that it is easier? I mean, for such opportunities, it's not, a very routine task that you get a full-time offer from any company. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy task that you accomplish. So to not lose out to such opportunities, how should we actually plan our internships? That was my basic question.
It's a good question. So the main reason why I chose a gap year was because there's this rule in ESCP that you have to validate 9 months of internship in order to graduate. And if you do not have any prior work experience, you need to validate 9 months of internship. So I was like, why 9 months? Like 9 months sounds like a very weird figure. I'd rather do for 1 year, like a full year. And that was the reason why I applied for a gap year and I did a internship for gap year. And the whole reason of doing an internship during the gap year was to get experience. It was not with an intention to find a full-time job. It was just with an intention to get experience, to get integrated into a French company, to have that credential that you actually worked in a French company with French colleagues. That was the whole intention for me. So the fact that I had to decline this offer didn't really bother me that much because the intention with which I joined in the first place was different. Now, what you're saying is targeting with a full-time job in your mind. And when you're targeting like that, in that case, focusing on an end of study internship is much better. So what you can do is you can actually take a gap year, do an internship, and it shouldn't really bother you much during a gap year because you will be earning and you will be all your expenditure should be through the money that you're earning. So you won't be taking money from somewhere else or you won't be wasting money from your savings, right? So in that case, my suggestion would be to do an internship in a gap year, get the experience, and then again, you can focus on an end of study internship as well. And once you finish the end of study internship, there's a possibility of converting it into a full-time job. Also, you have this thing called APS visa, which is a job search visa, right? and you have two job contracts called CDI contract and CDD contract. So CDI contract is an indefinite contract and CDD contract is a definite contract. So generally the students focus on a CDI contract because you get a lot of visa benefits if you have a CDI contract. And in order to get a CDI contract, you need to have a APS visa first, right? So right now when you're studying, you will be having a student visa. So when you do your end of study internship, while doing the internship, you can convert your student visa into an APS visa. And as you complete your end of study internship, you can tell the company that I already have an APS visa right now. And if there's a possibility, if there's an opening, I would love to apply for a full-time post. You know? And if there is a possibility, if there is an opening, they will invite you for that. So end of study internship, yes, there is a possibility. So what you have to do is just don't validate your internship in advance with ESCP. Validate it later so that you still have this end of study opportunity left.
Great, that I pretty much guess answers my question. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Shantanu. Cool. Any other questions? Or do you feel ESCP specializations are too theoretical after what you learned in implementation? Not at all. ESCP specializations are not at all theoretical, especially the consulting specialization that I did. My first specialization was consulting, impact studies and research, and that was completely practical. During the specialization itself, we did projects with companies like PwC. My main project was with a French automotive company. It was a very big project, and the final grade that my team received was based on the project that we did with the company. This project was in real time. It was with the real company. We were interacting with the real employees of the company. They were giving us the problems that the company is facing. We were coming up with solutions for that. So it is not theoretical. It definitely, at least for consulting, because that's the only specialization I've done so far. For consulting, it was very practical oriented. And very sure about marketing specializations, to be honest. It should be theoretical. I mean, it should be practical oriented as well. Cool.
So it seems that, I think we've reached the end of our questions. And we just wanted to end with a fun question that, is there anything you would have told 1 month before ESCPU? Just coming 1 month before, all of us are kind of really going bonkers at this stage. Our flights are...
Yeah, I can understand. No, I'm pretty sure you guys will be already like quite loaded with all the documentation, the travel, visa things. That's very time consuming. That's very tedious. So make sure to organize all those things first properly, because that's very important. Apart from that, the other things that you can do 1 month prior to joining ESCP is start learning French because you will be needing it. So you don't have to be like exceptionally professional. You don't have to write poems or literature, but being able to say, hi, hello, I want 1 kg of apple, I want some bananas, stuff like that, thank you, welcome. So just start learning French. It definitely helps. Start focusing on the skills that you might need in your career in the future. Like if you want to get into consulting, start studying Excel, get proficient with Excel if you don't know already. If you want to get into marketing, start learning some video editing software, some basic photo editing software. Focus on those. The other thing that you could do is you can actually start networking 1 month prior to joining ESCP. So I think what we are doing right now is also a form of networking. So you can network right now. You can network like this. You can reach out to people on LinkedIn. You can reach out to your seniors. You can reach out to people who are already there in France. And when I say network, I'm not talking only in terms of career. I'm also talking in terms of building relationships, friends, someone with whom you can pursue your hobbies, anything, everything. Network, don't limit network only to your career, but when I say network, include it in your life as well. Through YouTube, I got so much opportunity to meet so many other YouTubers. I'm pretty sure you guys might be knowing Mayank from HEC. He puts a lot of videos. You might be knowing Arif from ESSEC. He puts out a lot of videos. You must be knowing Joshua from Easy French. He was from edX. So all these guys, what we have in common is YouTube. We are all creators. We all have this passion for making content, passion for creating videos, passion for helping people out, So we networked and we met, and we have a community now. We hang out every weekend. We go out. We go for dinners. So it's not related to career, but at the same time, it's your relationships, it's the community that you're making for yourself, the new friends that you're creating. And you can start doing that from now itself. You don't have to be in Paris to be able to do this. You can start the process now, and then you can say that, I'm actually coming to Paris in a month, and we could catch up, we could meet, if you're up for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the most fun part of these months, at least for me. Great.
Nice.
Shantanu, we have a meetup scheduled in Delhi tomorrow. So
Nice. So you're meeting. Great.
Great. Thanks so much, Vikram. This was really, really helpful. I think a lot of our anxieties are feeling a bit better or worse, depending on what your answer was. So